Welcome to World History on a Page, Part 2. In the first part, we started with the Roman Empire and went towards the present day, and now we're going to start going back in time. And another shape that reminds you of this shape is the beginning of the Kingdom of Israel. We'll draw that right here just before the year 1000, because David became king around 1000. And this Kingdom of Israel, after David's son Solomon died, divided into two kingdoms. The northern part was ended in the 700s by an invasion, and the southern part continued into the 500s when it also was ended by an invasion. I'm using a different color here so you can tell the difference from part 1, but you can simply use pencil when you do it. The Kingdom of Israel and the Kingdom of Judah. Again, the directions and the exact dates are on my website. What are these empires that ended this kingdom? The Assyrian Empire became strong and attacked and overcame Israel from its base in northern Iraq. But then the Assyrian Empire in turn was conquered by the Babylonian Empire from southern Iraq. That empire was, they took the Jewish people captive to Babylon. That was the time of Daniel, the one who was in the lion's den. But then the Babylonian Empire in turn was conquered by an even larger empire, the Persian Empire. The Persian empires allowed the Jewish people to return back to their homeland of Judah. The Persian Empire was conquered by an even larger empire. That was the empire of Alexander the Great. Now, after Alexander the Great died, his generals took over different parts of his kingdom, and the general that ruled in the Middle East was Seleucus, and so this dynasty is called the Seleucid dynasty. About around the 150s, the Jewish people revolted against the Seleucid dynasty and formed an independent kingdom called the Hasmoneans. And what happened to them? Well, Rome had begun back in the 700s as a city, but eventually it began expanding its territory, taking over more and more of the surrounding territories, until finally it ended up taking over the Seleucid kingdom and ending the Jewish independent kingdom. What happened to the Persians? Even before the Roman Empire took over, the Persians managed to get independent from the Seleucids again, and they formed in Iran the kingdom of the Parthians. The Romans and the Parthians were fighting throughout those years. In the 200s, the Parthians were replaced by the Sassanids, and they continued until the Muslims came along, and Persia then for a while was under the rule of the Umayyad Caliphate and then the Abbasid Caliphate. After they got independent again, they still remained Muslim, except during the Mongol time when there actually was an empire there in Iran. It was called the Ilkhan, and it was made up of Muslims. Of Mongols. One other thing that happened through various kingdoms, the next longer lasting one was called the Safavids, and that brings us to Iran of the present day. That is as much as I would like to give you here for part 2. And again, I invite you to see if you can internalize it by drawing it for yourself on pieces of paper. And in order to get the details and the exact years, you're welcome to go to foundbytes.com and click on Learn History. When we go to part 3, we'll be working on this last empty space over here. Part 4, we'll draw a diagram for Asia, and down here eventually we'll draw the Americas and Africa, so we'll end up finally with the entire world. Thanks for staying with me.